In 1919, he hit 29 home runs and was sold to the New York Yankees.
A three-run home run for Buffington. The Yankees now lead it by a score of 3-2. Bill Lee is now going over to a couple of the Yankees, and there they go again.
One hits it to deep left. That might send the Yankees to the World Series.
Varitek and A-Rod going at it. Roberts is going. Posada's throw. Roberts safe.
And what can I say? Just tip my hat and call the Yankees my daddy.
Welcome to Fanbase, a deep dive into the greatest rivalry in sports, episode 192. We finish up the week of baseball heading into the weekend, and we have some things we know about the World Baseball Classic. We want to do a quick update on our teams and go from there. John Senecal, Brian Shackman. John, how are you?
I'm good. I'm enjoying my week off here in Connecticut. Not up in Boston this week, but I'll be heading back to Boston for the first game of the White Sox-Red Sox series.
You're going to be working it. You have media credentials.
Yeah, there's a kid with autism. I say kid, he's a college student throwing out the first pitch. It's Autism Awareness Month, so he's throwing out the first pitch.
When was the last time you were on the field?
Oh, God, it was...
Because you've been on the field there.
A few times, yeah. When Dickerson had been in town with the Orioles, God, probably 2017.
Okay. So
it's been a while. Yeah, it's been a while since I've actually been on the field.
And then Dave Mellor, I think, retired their ground squad. I wonder if the field's any different. I just wanted to touch on one thing Red Sox related before we get into some of the World Baseball Classic. Roman Anthony had another monster game in the minors, and the clamor for him to come up. And it's true, I think, for Marcelo Mayer, too. I don't know how he's playing, but both of those guys, I'm told, are Major League ready now.
Yeah.
And if you listen to, whether it's Jared Carrabis or other people, Carrabis made a really good point earlier in this week, basically saying that the Red Sox, the way they look now, are not the way they're going to look in July.
Right.
So, and I think that if Roman Anthony needs to be in the lineup, and Casas needs to be out of the lineup. So
how do you solve that issue?
When do you make the move? To me, baseball is so hard. This is what I wanted to bring up with you, because baseball, how hard a game it is. And people say, well, you have 600 at-bats and 162 games, blah, blah, blah. The thing is, I know this from knowing Rico Bronya when he was playing and I was dating his sister, that if you go 0 for 4 and then you go 0 for 4 again, you feel like your professional life is on the line.
Yeah.
Like that pressure mounts up in a way that you can't imagine. And the only way to truly know how good you can be is if you work without fear. Work without fear of released or sent down or benched, right? You really have to, as a manager, you have to have the player not worry about certain things so they can be their best selves. Having said that, what's the statute of limitations on, not necessarily giving up, but making a move and saying, what, whether you got an issue you got to work out or whether you just don't have it, you're done. Is 3 weeks, is 4 weeks not enough, or is it enough?
Well, I think,
and I'm specifically talking about Tristan Casas.
But the problem with Casas is how do you move a player like Casas and then substitute him with a Roman Anthony or a Marcelo Mayer? Like, who's going to play first base for them? And where
convert somebody?
And then where does you're going to put
Devers? I don't know.
Wilmer Abreu is going to play first base and Roman Anthony's going to play right field. I mean, the thing you're going to have to do is you're going to have to look at guys like Casas and guys like Wilmer Abreu who have options, who you could send down, right?
First of all, you send Casas down. There's no debate. Maybe you put Devers.
Easy, right, Brian, easy to say that, but how do you replace him? You don't have a first baseman to replace him.
Honestly, and I know that people who say, put anybody at first is not hard. I understand, going back to Moneyball.
It's incredibly hard.
But having said that, if you got a kid who's athletic, 95% of the players.
You suggest teaching Roman Anthony
I don't know.
I don't see that working, especially with a guy who's raking in AAA and playing outfield.
Okay.
That's the problem. We talked about this. Over and over. Yoshida is a hamstring for you guys because he can only DH. And now Casas is a hamstring for you guys because he can't hit.
Can't do anything.
Right. He can't do anything. But he's a good enough player to do that, and you know that, so you're not going to get rid of him, so you send him down. But who's going to play first base? You don't have that option.
Yeah, maybe it's Devers. I don't know. I'm not saying all I know.
You still, where do you put Anthony? You have to sit. You have to DH him, and you have to sit Yoshida, or you have to sit Abreu. You're not going to sit Durant. You're not going to sit Rafael. It's just not happening. They're log jammed. There's no room for these guys.
Well, I guess that's why they get paid.
It's a bold move. That's what they need to do, right?
They need to.
What's Yoshida batting?
I don't know. Does Yoshida even play? He
Well,
doesn't
that's
play.
one of the guys that's sucking you up. He's only played DH, so he's got to be playing. They're paying him like $50 zillion.
Well, what about Rafaela? I mean, move him. He stinks too.
So
I don't know.
He has options, but he's also got a contract, a big contract, relative to his age.
So I don't know if it's
I agree with you 100%. Roman Anthony should be in the majors
right. And
now.
so whatever it is, freaking do it. Like Casas, and again, like I don't mind the quirkiness. It's quirky and it's fun when you're doing well, and he's a jackass if it's not going well. And right now, everyone thinks he's a jackass. I'm not going to pass judgment on a young kid. He's got a lot of growing up to do. He's so young. Like you don't remember like how delusional you might have been when you were in your 20s. Like the kid's got some work to do on himself. But the bottom line is he shouldn't be in the majors, right? And so whatever it is you got to do. You got to do it. Yeah. And I think my point ultimately when I talk about like how much is too much is that I think that both fans and I think the team should have like said, okay, something's wrong with Casas. Let him go down for a month and rake on these schleps in AAA. Let's have everybody on the big. Somebody's going to get hurt at some point, and maybe there would be a place for him later. His time for now is done.
Well, they have to do something because they're not scoring runs, right? They're the only team in the AL East with a negative run differential.
Is that true?
Only team in the AL East, negative 11 run differential in the AL East. Now, I mean, baseball in general is interesting because the AL Central, every team has a negative run differential except Detroit. And then in the AL West, every single team has a negative run differential. Now, that also means who they've been playing. A lot of teams have been playing the NL West, who every team has a positive except the Rockies.
Right. And by the way,
they're done. They're done.
The Diamondbacks are in fourth. And they're plus 22.
Yeah.
I feel bad for the Rockies, and our buddy Clint Hurdle is now the hitting coach. I honestly think unless they change divisions, and I'm not going to with the over-under on them being relevant or a wild card team, I would say 2029.
It's crazy that you just said that, change divisions, because like when I looked at this, I kind of was like, I knew the Rockies sucked, but then I looked and I was like, negative 51 run differential. That's almost double any other team. Like that's double any other team negative run differential. That's almost double most of the team's positive run differential. It's crazy.
Arizona, San Francisco, the Dodgers, the Padres. Any of those four teams could win the World Series.
Yeah.
Any of those four teams would be probably the best team in the American League.
So what would you do with a team like Colorado? If you were to move them out of that division, how do you solve that problem? You move them back to the Central, and you move like St.Louis into that division?
You can't do that to St. Louis because they're too storied a franchise to dictate that too. You
Milwaukee's
can't do it to
been
the
pissed
Reds.
around too many times.
Yeah.
You can't do it.
The Central is so storied. Like the NL Central, those teams are too.
Put Atlanta back in the West.
Yeah, seeing geographically, it doesn't.
Weren't they in the West
work.
like years ago?
I don't know.
I feel like.
But I mean, Colorado geographically needs to be in the Central or the West, or move them to the AL. I don't know. I just know
they need more teams. MLB needs more teams, I guess. They need a team in Portland or Salt Lake City or.
They need something because I almost feel bad for the Rockies because it doesn't matter what they do. It doesn't matter what they do.
They're going to suck no matter what. But how do you show up? A beautiful stadium, a great city.
Well, it's too big, though. That stadium's too big.
But how do you show up to that? How do you get excited about that knowing that your season's over 2 weeks into the season, 3 weeks into the season?
Well, if they have $10 tickets.
They're 18 games into the season, and they have zero chance.
Right. And they have less chance than the White Sox.
They could sign Shohei and Judge, and they still wouldn't make the playoffs.
He's John Senecal. I'm Brian Shackman. You've been taking your hot take pills last couple weeks. I like it.
You a little fired up this morning, though.
Well, I just think it's so dumb for the Red Sox to sit there and give it time. I think you need to give them time. I think
they
month
need to
is
trade some
time.
people is what they need to do.
But you can't get anything for Casas.
You're not going to get anything for Yoshida if they're not hitting, but they need to move players.
They need something. Hey, just give me a quick update. I know the big thing we talked about at the end of the week on the radio was Jazz's little tantrum on social media and so on and so forth.
Yeah, so Jazz flipped out. Obviously, bad calls. It's funny you say what happened with Jazz. I watched an interview with him on MLB Network during the day, like last week, and they said, "What bothers you the most in MLB?" And he said, "Bad calls." And he said, "Bad calls." Bad. He just kept saying that. And and if you watch Yankee games, Jazz is a very animated player.
Yeah, I like him.
Yeah,
right?
And again, I'll say it again and again and again. When these players, batters, argue the strike, 99.9% of the time,
they're right.
They're right.
Yeah.
They're definitely right. And it's amazing. And that dude last night was throwing like 100 miles an hour. So we know how these players know the zone. That being said, another step towards some sort of challenge system. I don't think full automation, but there's going to be some sort of ball strike challenge system coming. Yankees. Positive notes about the Yankees.
Ben Rice.
We're still working out the starting pitching. Bullpen's been lights out. Devin Williams finally got his first non-blemish save where nobody touched him. But the Yankees bullpen, long, short relief has been lights out. We still need to get some length. Fried is doing good. But the big thing is like last year, Judge didn't have much hitting behind him all season, but he had a bunch of junk in front of him instead of other than Soto because they couldn't really figure out the leadoff spot. This year it's working, right? He's got two great hitters in front of him with Goldschmidt and Rice the way they figured out this formula, and it's working.
Well, Ben Rice, listen, he's got basically a third of the at-bats from a year ago, and he's got 5 home runs. He's a 2 shy of last year.
Yep.
He's obviously batting way better. He's striking out less.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if it's just because he gets better pitches because of who's in front of him or
a lot. That has a lot to do with it, but it also the first thing everyone talked about Ben Rice when he came into spring training this year was how much different he looked.
Like
stronger, put on weight, put on a lot of muscle, not as lanky. He almost, in a way, looked like a totally different person, in my opinion. And I'm that's translating. And again, yes, hitting in front of Aaron Judge doesn't hurt, but if you're getting on base too and you're waiting on pitches and you're being selective, which he is very good. That being said, the Yankees still have a lot of issues on the back end of their lineup. Nobody's hitting. Bellinger's not hitting. Jazz is not hitting. Volpe's not hitting. Like the whole bottom quarter, 2/3 of their lineup is garbage. So they need to figure that out. But if Aaron Judge is going, usually that's how the Yankees go. So let's hope he stays healthy. And right now the Yankees are tied for the best record in the AL with Texas Rangers, but by 1 game.
I mean, again, there's no real separation.
No.
I mean, again, like they have the same record as the Arizona Diamondbacks, who are in 4th in the NL West. I mean, I'm blown away by the NL West. I just and I love that the Padres are good. They're finally they shed some talent, as we all know, but they're somehow better. And I think maybe the expectations eased a little bit. And
they're athletic. That's the big thing that's helped them. I mean, I think I read somewhere that every one of their position players was a former shortstop at some point.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So you have like Fernando Tatis, Jake Cronenworth, Luis Arraez, Jackson Merrill, Bogey, Machado. I believe. I mean, I think Then they say at some point I'd say high school too, right? But their catcher probably. I mean, Salvi Perez was a shortstop at one point for the.
Interesting.
So that's it translates, right? The shortstop's usually the best player on the field, and when you have those athletic players like Jackson Merrill went from shortstop to center field and was basically a Gold Glover.
He's John Senecal, Brian Shackman here, episode 192 of Fanbase, a deep dive into the greatest rivalry in sports. Listen, it's hard for me a year out to get into the World Baseball Classic. I think you're jazzed up because Aaron Judge is the captain. I mean, I would say prove to me that I should care right now. But what I would ask you is, like, you already broken down the numbers. Like, who's gonna start for Team USA?
Well, you talk
How
about
much of a dork you are.
Well, you talk about a year out, right? But if you look at the last time the World Baseball Classic happened, the same manager, Mark DeRosa, that's doing it this year did it last time, but he came in really late to the game. He didn't find out till like less than a year ahead of time. And most of his coaching staff was kind of already picked out.
Right.
So that makes it tough, right? This year he's getting into it. This time around he's getting into it way ahead of Vance, and he's basically got full reins, kind of. Him and I think Mike Hill is the general manager, and they got basically full reins. But the big thing he did was he went and made the call to Aaron Judge right away to get him on board, right? And if you get Aaron Judge on board, that means the marquee player in American baseball wants to play, and hopefully those other dominoes will fall. Now, I listened to an interview with DeRosa did, and he was talking about a core group of players 3 or 4 that he's already reached out to other than Aaron Judge, with the hopes that they see Judge play, and if they say yes, everybody's going to say yes. So,
what do you think? It's like Harper?
I would guess it's like a Bryce Harper. I'm thinking it's guys that's never played before, like a Bryce Harper, those kind of guys. Maybe a Gunnar Henderson. Mookie's been on the team before, but definitely I would say Bryce Harper would be definitely one of them. But it's interesting because you wonder what direction they'll take. You can take 30 players. 12 of them have to be pitchers, and 2 of them have to be catchers. So then what's that leave you? 16 position players that you have to fill. Now you have to look at it like, are you going to start going by position? Or are you going to do what we just talked about, the shortstop angle? Are you going to look at a Mookie Betts and be like, oh, Mookie could play right, he could play short, he could play second? Are you going to look at a guy like a Jackson Merrill who could come in and basically play anywhere? Or are you going to think look at a guy like Gunnar Henderson, and we'll say, sorry, Gunnar, Bobby Witt's our shortstop. You're going to have to go play third. But what happens to a guy like Alex Bregman if you want him on the team? So let's look at the lineup. All right, I initially I sat down with my son last night, and we kind of just breezed through off the top of our head, right? And then you miss a lot of players just because you're off the top of your head. Then you go kind of through the lineups, and we came out with 42 players. And even then, it was there wasn't many relievers on there because you don't think relievers a lot of times, right? You think the marquee starters. But I'm just going to name off the players by position, and then I'll tell you kind of what we went down to with the 30. So we start with catcher, and I think the obvious choice here is Adley Rutschman, right? He's a switch hitter, young guy, good track record coming towards his first free agent contract in another year after this year. Established. The other player we talked about is Austin Wells. I think, not bad. Probably not going to make the team. And then the third catcher was Kyle Raleigh. Another switch hitter, platinum glove winner, excellent defender. Big contract just signed. Got the repertoire. Good defender. Probably a great choice. Probably will make the team. First base. Two choices really just came to my mind. Was Bryce Harper, definite, got to get Harper on the team, and then Pete Alonso, who's been on the team before, but not a bad defender and just a great guy, right? Yep. Great guy to have on the team. I think he'd be a huge
good
asset.
Pinch hitter too. I mean, to be honest,
will do anything, right? Never, no pressure bothers him. Any of that stuff. Now, second base is where it gets interesting because this is where you start thinking about where you can start moving players, right? You could take the shortstops and put them there, maybe a third baseman and put them there, or you look at a second baseman and. I came up with two players that were actually second basemen, and one of them is interesting because my son and I call them dad coach because Matt Holliday is the hitting coach. So automatically we were thinking, Jackson Holliday is going to find his way onto this team. Young player, get the experience like Bobby Witt did his last time around, right? So we highlighted him as dad coach. So he would make the team. Not so much on his talent because he hasn't really done much, but we're talking a year ahead. He could do more. So we put him on there, and then we put Bryce Terang on the team, who's another Platinum Glove winner, second baseman from Milwaukee, who's having a good year this year and had a good year last year. That being said, now both of those guys might not be on a team, right? They might not be on the team because you can move players, right? Shortstop. So let's get to shortstop where it gets real interesting because you got a lot of talent in Major League Baseball at shortstop. And the obvious choice is Bobby Witt Jr.
If he'll play.
If he'll play. Well, he was on the team last time, but he didn't get much playing time. I would say that DeRosa is probably one of the guys that he's saying, listen, you want another shot at this and play all the time, right, kid? And he's probably, I'm sure Bobby Witt's carving the steak right now. You know what I mean? He's ready to go.
Well, I have two essential questions for you, so I want you to whip through this because then I have two questions for you. So whip through the lineup.
All right, so then we go Gunnar Henderson, who we would think could move to third, right? Yep. Bo Bichette, question mark. Corey Seager, question mark. Mookie Betts, got to be on the team. You could put him anywhere, right? Mookie Betts has to be on the team. Third baseman, we had two in mind. Austin Riley was one, but Alex Bregman is one that we just kept coming back to. That being said, Gunnar Henderson or some other shortstop could go to third. Let's get to the outfield. Aaron Judge, a definite. He's the captain. Our other definites that we picked were Pete Crow-Armstrong, dynamic center fielder for the Cubs. Kyle Tucker, who was on the team last time. Corbin Carroll, another dynamic player. But that's three lefties in the lineup. And then Aaron Judge. So you need some righties. Jackson Merrill, another lefty. And then we highlighted this guy, and he's going to be on the team, but maybe he doesn't deserve to be on the team talent-wise and his age-wise, declining his career, Mike Trout. But he will be on the team, I would say, just based on how DeRosa's already kind of looped him into it. So we made it through the position players. The other ones in the outfield that were question marks were Riley Green, James Wood from Washington, and Brenton Doyle, who's the outfielder, Gold Glove outfielder for the Colorado Rockies. Now, the pitching is where it gets interesting because these are where all the question marks come up because the teams worry about them workloads and all that crap. But in a perfect world, Mark DeRosa said he's calling all the guys that are on your list to the guys who asked him the question, what pitchers are you going after? So we're thinking the big guns, right? Who's the first guy you're thinking of? Paul Skeens, right? So we put Paul Skeens, Garrett Crochet, Spencer Strider, Tarek Skubal, Mason Miller, the closer for Oakland, Max Fried, Hunter Green, Corbin Burns, Michael King, starter for San Diego, Logan Webb, starter for San Francisco, Ryan Helsley, the closer for St. Louis, Josh Hader, and Tanner Scott. Now, those guys make it because they're left-handed closers, the last two, and you don't have any really left-handed bullpen guys. We initially, That being said, I think the bullpen's very fluid, right? Very fluid. And the two utility guys we had in mind were we had three, but the two that we kept coming back to were Tommy Edman and Jordan Westberg.
Okay, let me stop you there. 'Cause you went really inside baseball. I'm just curious. Do the players care?
I think they do. I think it's important because I'll say it all started with the Dream Team basketball, right? Back in the day, the one we remember, the Jordan,
92.
And the gold medal. I think it all just goes around that, just like the World Series ring. You know, that replaces all the wealth. It's the bragging rights, and the fact that they lost to Japan in the dramatic fashion last time with Shohei and Trout with the showdown at the end, and knowing that the other countries, especially Japan and the DR and Venezuela, they take it so seriously. They throw everything they got at it. And DeRosa said the only way that the U.S. will win this is if they take it seriously.
Okay, that's question number one. Question number two, I think specifically of Rutschman and Skeens, load management and insurance and viability for their club.
Yeah.
Are the clubs, do they insure it? Because I can't imagine. Rutschman clearly needs to be managed because he runs out of gas late in the season, and Skeens is like he's gold, and you put innings that aren't for your team. Those are innings wasted.
Yeah, and it's also, you got to remember, it's also baseball being played at full speed early. March 6th through the 17th.
Yeah. I mean, I just wonder from a liability standpoint, all that stuff, like whether...
I would imagine it's on a player basis. I would imagine it's on a team basis based on how their contracts are structured.
So I was Ben Cherington in Pittsburgh, I'd be like, no.
Because according to Aaron Judge made the decision, I guess, from what I heard, without even saying anything to the Yankees. Now, could that just be in Aaron Judge's contract and that not even be an issue? That Aaron Judge has carte blanche to agree to that kind of stuff?
Maybe.
Right. I would imagine that the Yankees and all these teams have all this stuff worked out. But that being said, what benefit is it for the Yankees right now with Aaron Judge being named captain? That only helps the Yankees unless he gets hurt on the field playing, obviously, like
But Judge is not my issue.
No, Judge is not your issue. The pitching, like I said, going into naming the pitchers, that is the big question. That's why last time they had Adam Wainwright starting the final game. And you got your marquee pitchers, Merrill Kelly. You're not going to win with those guys. You need the Corbin Burns. You need the Skeens. So that's what they need to do. Maybe it's the Pirates are saying, well, Skeens is not going to pitch more than 40 pitches. But it's March 6th, so maybe Skeens doesn't pitch more than 2 innings regardless. So there's going to be a lot of question marks to work out.
That's going to hurt the team's viability. Like, I'd be more inclined with giving them, if they can somehow get, like, how many, I don't even know what the days are between, but it's more, I don't know if they could start their routines a month earlier and be up to 6 innings by then.
I think that's what it's going to be, Brian. That the process has started so early now, and they're taking it so seriously. I think these players are going to be locked in now that Judge is locked in. And if you get that core group, there'll be so much preparation that these pitchers, that the main ones that are concerned, will be geared up, ready to go. And the only thing that's going to stop them is injury while they prep.
And when do they have to make? They don't make these decisions till off season, correct?
The team itself, I don't think has an exact deadline, like other than maybe as it gets closer, based on injury. But I think to get the buzz going, you're going to see a lot of names come out in the next 2 weeks.
Interesting.
I would think.
Really, the next 2 weeks?
I would think so. I would think so.
He's John Senecal. We're going to leave it there. I'm Brian Shackman. This is Fanbase, a deep dive into the greatest rivalry in sports.